2022 at 6:06 p.m. I'll start with a roll call. Gabriela Hernandez Castillo.
Present.
Great. Angie Rivera.
She's on.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
That's her.
Okay, great. We hear you. Michelle Pulido.
She just rejoined right now, Lori.
Present.
Bernice Bayunis.
Present.
Nellie Legaspi.
Here.
And Denise Naranjo. Denise actually just emailed and said that she's not going to be able to attend. She has an issue at work that she needs to address.
So do we have quorum, right?
We do have quorum.
Okay, good.
Also present, we have Jenna Burns, advisor to the Personnel Board, Lori Schneider, recording secretary, Kelly Lee, human resources staff. I'm sorry, Lily Pham, human resources staff. Kelly and James will likely come in maybe a little bit later, but they're not here right now. So we have Lily. We're in the council chambers, but we both have our computers up. So that's why we're both kind of on the call here. So please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Next up is public comments. Lily, do we have anybody submit public comments?
Nope.
Via email?
No.
There's nobody present in the council chambers, and I don't see anybody online. Consent calendar. The first thing up on the consent calendar is excused absences. So this is something that the other boards and commissions do as well as council. And this is something we're going to start doing, is excusing the absent board members. So I'm actually not sure. I know that we've had meetings in the past where we haven't done it. I don't know if we want to do that for past meetings or just start now with our current meeting.
I would just say start now.
Okay, we have one.
I'll move to suggest we start now. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? Okay, we have one board member who's absent. That's Denise Naranjo. The motion is to approve her, or to excuse her absence from this board meeting.
Lori, did we get a second?
Yeah, a second.
Do I have a second?
I think everybody's muted.
Are we seconding to start now or to excuse?
Starting today.
So the motion is to start today and moving forward to excuse absent board members.
So we need a second for that.
I, Gabriella, second that motion.
Okay.
So did you?
Gabriella seconds.
All right, so then let's vote. Gabriela Hernandez Castillo.
Yes.
Okay. Bernice Bayinas.
Can you clarify for me what exactly we're motioning on?
Yes, the motion is to start taking attendance moving forward, starting today, moving forward, and not go back for previous meetings.
So just take attendance every meeting? That's
Yes.
the motion?
Well, we always
Don't we already do that?
We always take attendance during the meetings, but this is to excuse, we haven't been, in the personnel rules, in the personnel board rules, it says that the board members, it's up to the board members to vote to excuse absences or not excuse absences. And we really haven't, we really haven't been doing that. And so I started putting this on the agenda because this is something we should be doing. We say that we're going to be doing this in the rules. And so the question that is on the table is, are we going to do it starting now? Or do we also want to look back at previous meetings? Would be the opposite. That's not the question. The question on the table is to start now for today's meeting.
I have a question. This is Michelle. If we do start now, what does that mean for the previous absences? Are they unexcused or they just have a status of like not determined?
It's just going forward, Michelle. From this point on, we're not addressing the past.
She's asking to say if by doing this, they're if we don't approve it, then the absence is unexcused, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know how it would be.
For any previous?
For the previous meetings, the absences, I'm not sure if they would be excused or unexcused.
No, they would be recorded as we do them. So if we were known in advance that they had a conflict, then they would be excused. But if they just didn't show, that was unexcused.
So for today, what would be, or moving forward, what would be considered an excuse and an unexcused absence?
That's up to the board to decide.
I think if we don't reach out and say, hey, I can't make it because I'm sick, or I can't make it because of scheduling conflict. If we don't contact at all, I would say that's inexcusable. But if we're sick or we have to work or in family emergency, I would say that's excusable.
Okay, then on my vote, it's a yes. I just wanted clarification on what the process would be moving forward. So yes, thank you.
Okay.
Nellie Legaspi?
Yes.
Michelle Polito?
Yes.
Angie Rivera?
Yes.
Motion carries. So we will now, do I have a motion to excuse the absence of Denise Naranjo from this board meeting?
I'll move, Nellie.
Do I have a second?
I second that, Angie.
And to vote, Gabriela Hernandez Castillo. We're voting to excuse the absence of Denise Naranjo from this meeting. Starting with Gabriela Hernandez Castillo.
She's muted.
And Gabby, you're muted. You can't, if you could either type in the chat. Gabby, can you hear us? All right, let me come back to Gabby. Bernice Bayinas?
Yes.
Nellie Legaspi?
Yes.
Michelle Polito?
I will say yes, and to also notify her of our new process, just so that she's aware.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
She wants, it's a yes, but to notify Denise of the new process.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Angie Rivera?
Yes.
And coming back to Gabriela Hernandez Castillo?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
She said she didn't hear.
Hello?
Hi, we're voting on, the motion on the table is to excuse Denise Naranjo from, to excuse her absence from this meeting.
Yes. I have heard of that before. Yes.
Okay, great. The motion carries. The next item on the consent calendar is to approve the minutes of the meeting of the Personnel Board for January 5th, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? So I know this is something that's been on the agenda a few times, and even if you were not present, you can still review the minutes and vote accordingly. But this is something that, you know, at some point we have to get the minutes correct based on, you know, if there are any errors or anything. And we have to approve the minutes eventually just to move the actions of the committee forward.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here and support Lori on this. You know, it's just the approval of the minutes. And I know a lot of people or a lot of board members were abstaining because they weren't present. But like Lori said, you don't actually have to be present to approve the minutes. So really the only time the minutes should not be approved is if there is some discussion of some error or something that you want amended to the minutes, and then that's totally appropriate. But otherwise, you know, this is really trying to move along the business of the people, and we really, like Lori said, we really just need to get these minutes approved.
Weren't they also missing pieces of detail as well?
Yeah, there was some stuff missing that Gabby wanted.
So I think that if we are going to vote and weren't there, then they would be likely not approved minutes.
Well,
you never want to approve minutes if there's errors. So Gabby, there was some items that were missing when we met 2 meetings ago, when we had quorum, when we were on Zoom. And you were going to make sure that you had them entered into the minutes for that particular date. And that meeting I wasn't at, so I want to make sure you have an opportunity to have those items added to that particular month. I think it was from December.
Nellie?
Yes.
Okay. So I did summarize after the meeting the points that I had made.
Oh, okay.
And they were included in the following meeting. Yes, but I just feel like it's really important that we summarize after every meeting so that they are included in the minutes. Otherwise, they're really vague.
Okay.
And I can review my notes to see if anything was missed.
So I'll support whatever you guys move in second once it comes to voting. What you ladies want to suggest.
Can you repeat that, please?
I was saying that I'll go ahead and vote once the motion is made and seconded to accept the minutes for the months that we need to approve. Once you ladies go ahead and motion and second. In other words, I'll take your lead.
So do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 5th, 2022? Is your mic off? You did mic off. Is your mic off? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry about that. So in attendance at that meeting was Angie Rivera, Bernice Ballinas, Denise Naranjo, and Gabriela Hernandez Castillo.
I am happy to move forward with putting the motion to approve the minutes, but I think moving forward, we should just have the minutes be more detailed than vague. So other board members that were not present can know what was spoken at the meetings.
Bernice, and I'll also jump in here again, and that the board has decided to now record any public meetings, and so that the board members can also refer to the recordings as well.
And I understand that, but I think it should also be documented in the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Angie, I second that.
Okay, thank you. So now discussion. So looking at these minutes, sorry, I'm hearing myself. Looking at the minutes of January 5th, if you look to the comments, you can see that there are several comments listed here under the business calendar. Is that the level of detail that you're looking for or something else?
I think it's important whenever, and I apologize because some of the minutes we have from this last time, they are vague in that when we take an action, I guess for myself, when we take an action, the motion and the second needs to be, the actual motion needs to be clearly stated and discussion needs to be clearly stated rather than summarized. So that's, I mean, that everybody, when people do recording secretaries, everybody has their own style and every board is different. So I'm looking at it from the public. If they look at our minutes, once they're approved, are they going to understand what decisions we made within that meeting, especially when it comes to the rules and policies once we start approving them? So I guess going forward, that's the type of detail that I myself would want to see. I would want to see that detail, even if it's a paragraph or two. So that if a public person is reading it, they understand what's going on. Now, yes, our policy meetings are going to be recorded. That's going to be a big help. But I'm just advocating for the person that, let's say they can't look at the recording because they don't have that technology. They request the minutes. Can they understand what went on in that meeting based on what's in the minutes? So that's what I'm talking about. We don't want to stop the city's business going forward with the Personnel Commission, but we want the public to be able to understand what we're doing if they read those minutes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's all I would put in discussion.
I think that's a good idea.
So we're in discussion now, Lori, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So if nobody else has anything to add, I would call for the question and vote.
Okay. We are voting on approving the minutes from January 5th, 2022. Gabriela Hernandez Castillo.
To approve the minutes?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, it's a little loud where I'm at.
I'm sorry, what was that vote?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Bernice Bayunas.
Yes.
Nellie Legaspi.
Yes.
Michelle Polito.
Yes.
Angie Rivera.
Yes.
The motion carries. Next up on the agenda, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 19th, 2022?
I, Nellie, move to accept the minutes.
Is there a
I
second?
second it. I, Bernice Felina, second it.
Any discussion? I'm going to call for the question. Gabriela Hernandez Castillo.
Yes.
Bernice Baines.
Yes.
Nelly Legaspi.
Yes.
Michelle Pulido.
Yes.
Angie Rivera.
Yes.
The motion carries. This concludes the consent calendar. Now we turn it over to the business calendar and Michelle Pulido to run the business side of the meeting. I'm sorry, Michelle, if you weren't ready for that. Denise is out.
Oh.
So
I do not believe that I am prepared to run the business side of the meeting.
Okay, well, so I sent out to everybody the rules, and we can pick up on the rules, but Michelle submitted to me today some comments and recommendations to the rules. I can share my screen if you want to walk us through that. Does that sound like a place to start?
Yeah, I finally found mine.
Yes.
Populating.
Okay, let me pull that up.
So we have one that was sent out prior.
Yes.
Earlier in the week from you.
I need a new laptop.
let me try and pull things up. Okay, so the first page I left the blank for the cover art, and then the second page I didn't mark or include the table of contents update that we would be including. And I also did not include, would they be suggestions? Are there suggestions at this point? Or like my input? So my input would have been to have process flows, and then and like more tables, like say we're saying you can input an appeal via fax or cell phone or email, then we would include a table rather than something that's just like written down, just to make it easier for employees to like quickly understand. And then the numbering system, which we already talked about. And then, so I saw in the state of California's appeal boards that they actually have, like it's an option for the employee to request an actual hearing, or they can just submit an appeal. So like based on that, I was wondering if maybe it would be easier, knowing that we have multiple cases that are pending. It's possible that an employee would want to not have, like, forego a hearing and just input their appeal. So I was thinking if maybe that would be a possibility for us, where they just provide all their documentation.
So what you're saying is like they would just submit their case via documents, and then the board could review the documents, and then give a ruling on it.
Yes, if the employee chose to do so.
Does that match civil code, or are you're going from the other city that does it like that?
I looked at California. So I could pull it up later and take that as an action item for providing how they do it, if you guys want more clarification.
So are you're talking about the because you were going to do the table of contents and the cover pages. Are you talking about including that, or you're talking about a change to the rules?
A change to the rules.
And what section would you put it in? The introduction of with the overrule, or what page on the rules would you want that to be inputted?
So I put it here because it's the very first introduction. It says personnel board hears appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't sure if that meant like a hearing with like
yeah, that's what
board
an appeal is.
present
It's a hearing.
Yes. So that's why I put it in this section of just like a discussion. Let me see if I can just pull.
So what we're looking at right now, Lori, is that your document or that's Michelle sharing?
This is, I'm sharing it. Michelle sent it to me. This is her document.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So I guess, Michelle, if that's your suggestion, we can leave that in there and discuss it now, or just leave it there. And then when we vote at the end of the reading, then we would vote on accepting the document as whole, or voting what sections we want or not. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. I guess in that case, if anyone wants me to provide clarification or like what I noticed that I'm using, like, I guess kind of as like the benchmark for this.
If I can just jump in.
Or I can send a link.
If I could just jump in from a legal standpoint, we do, and I'm not saying this, I actually like the idea personally, because it's similar to submitting like an MSJ in court, and then the judge decides on the papers. But we do have to make sure, and I'm not saying this is with no analysis, but we have to make sure that would be in line with the Muni Code, because the Muni Code does set forth, procedures for hearings and whatnot. So we would have to make sure that still fits within the definitions. So,
and the municipal code does not include this option, so that would be a change to the code. That means the police department and the Santa Ana employees, their associations would have to approve that change, because that's a huge one. So they would have to
even
approve,
if it's
that would have
already
to be
present
added.
in the California Personnel Board.
Does not matter. California does not supersede each city, each county has the right to govern in their own way, including their boards. So even though the state of California has that in their personnel board, it does not tell the cities or counties how to conduct their business. So if we input that into this, that's a huge change. The police association and the employees association for Santa Ana will have to accept it.
Okay. I don't see why they would say no, because they still have the right to request a hearing. It just adds an additional option to fast.
Yeah, even though they may not have a problem, they still have to.
Okay.
Laura, you'll be sending everything that we have, that like with Michelle suggested, after we talk, you'll send that to us so we can add it to our changes that we like I have on my laptop. I can add that to it.
Yes.
Or you're gonna wait till we're done?
No, I can send it after this meeting.
Okay.
I have a question. I have a couple of questions. First of all, going back to the prior one, Michelle, are you suggesting that we use the numbering system that you placed in this document, or another one?
No, so I started working on this document before our last meeting. So I put that comment prior to you sending out your document, and then I just didn't switch over my comment.
Okay.
So that one you can actually just like take out the comment since it's already been accomplished.
And then for this second comment, do we need to add language, like the proposed language, for us to be able to vote on that, or for you guys to be able to vote on that? Do we need to add some proposed language?
If we suggested any, or any of the members have suggested it, we could, if it's already ready to go. But if it's not, that's something we can add after we finish the reading, if everybody's taking note. Like I finally have the document.
Because I think it was like I put things in here, and then I was gonna kind of see like what the feel was on it, and then I wasn't sure like how we would submit it. But I like that idea of like, if everyone's open to it, I could like write a rough draft of what, or I don't know if I would be the best person to write it, but to write like what the language would look like, and then we can vote on it? Most of the comments I made are just like questions or like just statements versus like verbiage that would go directly.
Well, like for me, for example, I don't know if everybody has the documents open in front of them. I'm looking at what Lori has on my small cell phone, so it's too hard for me to read through it. I have my document that I was working on that I sent Lori. So I think it's probably better if we continue reading, and then the suggestions that you put in, Michelle, once we're done with the reading today and whatever we click in as we're reading the document, then we can click it in there. And then after today, Lori can send over the draft we have now so we can all review it. I have that we stopped at section 2, hearings before the personnel board. That's where we stopped at.
That's right. Yeah, I was just going to bring up Michelle's comments up to where we were doing, where we finished the reading, and then we can proceed with the reading. So I think that's it, actually.
I had some. Oh, because we're only going so far.
Yeah, because we're reading, we're doing the reading, and then as we're going through the reading, if we see any grammatical errors, numbering change, because the numbers that you were suggesting, that's an overall document change. So that's something that once it's plugged in and we get to the end, we can look at that. And then the context, how do you say the table context? Contents, I can't talk today, sorry. And after we do that, then any big changes that we're going to be suggesting to each section, that's where we're going to plug them in and then send them to Lori, and then she'll plug them into the master document, and then we'll get that update so that we can look at it. Because in theory, we could finish this within the next 2 or 3 meetings, and then be able to vote on the final document, hopefully by March. It's feasible.
Okay, I have up section 2, hearings before the personnel board. Does somebody want to read through this paragraph? Okay, I will read it. Hearings before the personnel board are initiated by the filing of an appeal by an adversely affected employee, as described more fully below. The hearings are called by the chair of the board, or in the absence of the chair, by the vice chair. The chair, through the board secretary, is responsible for making arrangements via the executive director of personnel services for clerical and court reporter assistance in conducting the hearing, and for the assignment of appropriate space in which to hold the hearing on the dates prescribed. Any comments in this section? And actually, Michelle, I think you had a comment in this section.
Mm-hmm. So I think we wanted to, because we were talking about like the evidence prior, and then just having like more of a majority vote than calling on like the chair and the vice chair to make the decisions for things like this. So it was just a comment of like, did we want to switch to the board reviewing it, and like we have like maybe a weekly or a monthly or however, whatever cadence appeal style review meetings, and then we decide like based on majority of if we're going to accept it or not.
I think that's I think when we were discussing that, having more people involved was the pre-hearing. This is just the chair of the board is the person who officially calls the meeting to order, you know, like they're calling the meeting. They're, you know.
Yeah,
like
this is the procedure of the meeting.
Okay.
So,
like they preside over.
And if an employee appeals, you guys have to hear the appeal. You don't have you know, it's not like you get to vote on whether you hear the appeal. So it does.
We have to hear.
Oh, in that case, are we able to, can we change the title maybe like for process 4? I don't know. So it's like clear that that's not.
This is good though. This is procedural requirements
Never
prior
mind.
to appeal.
Maybe it's just once you learn. Okay. I guess it's just like once you learn, like as I'm learning the process, then it would have been more clear to me. So, okay.
Any other discussion in this paragraph?
I'm good.
All right, 2.1 is the procedural requirements prior to appeal. Huh? How come it didn't?
Can we scroll down on?
Do you need to refresh, or is it me? Is it showing up on my screen?
Can
It
you
might
also,
have froze.
you want to stop your share and share again, Lori?
Okay.
Do you want me to read, Lori?
No, I'm sorry. I'm having, hold on. It's not refreshing for you
What
guys.
if we, and then you can reject what I just requested and then maybe go take
There you go.
control back. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can read, or I can read. It doesn't matter. 2.1, procedural requirements prior to appeal. Before the appellate process commences, there are procedures which protect permanent employees in the city's civil service from arbitrary or inappropriate adversity in their employment. These are set forth in Code Sections 9-118.1 through 9-118.3 and in Skelly versus State Personnel Board 1975, and must be undertaken and accomplished before any issue may be presented to the Personnel Board. The board does not determine initial issues concerning employee discipline. Such discipline is the jurisdiction of the city and its management staff. The board hears only cases where the employee has already received discipline and is appealing from the departmental determination. Prior to any appeal, each employee is to receive at a minimum, 1, a written notice of proposed adverse action, such as this, or parentheses, suspension, demotion, or dismissal, in which the appointing authority sets forth all the reasons in detail for taking the proposed action. In code sections. The employee is provided with, number 2, the employee is provided with all the documentary and material evidence which the appointing authority relied upon to support the reasons for the adverse action as set forth in the notice. This includes all statements of witnesses, documents, investigative reports, and physical evidence which must be made available to the employee for review or copy. Code section 9-118.2 states that any evidence which cannot be disclosed to the employee in conjunction with the notice of proposed adverse action may not be used as a basis for the adverse action. Code section 9-118.3 permits the employee receiving the notice of proposed adverse action the opportunity to respond to the proposed disciplinary action within 10 days of receipt of the notice of adverse. The employee may answer the notice of proposed. Go ahead.
Lori, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you add the word action again after adverse?
Yes.
Also, I put a comment if 10 days is enough, or do we want to say 10 business days?
We could put 10 business days because we don't, this way it gives the employee a little bit more business days rather than the weekends. Because I know traditionally 10 days is 10 days period. It doesn't give you the fact that businesses aren't open on the weekend. So I'm good with that 10 business days.
Well,
business being added in there.
Closed like during like holidays.
Well, yeah, I believe this is part of the code. This is not, I mean, this is a.
It is, it would be a change to the code. So this would be something that the union would have to vote on because the code does say 10 days. It doesn't say business days. And I know that, I'll just speak about union wise.
Like
well, the unions just did that. We changed everything to business days, taking into consideration when employees, when businesses are closed for holidays and weekends. So we changed it to business days, not calendar days.
Oh, okay. So that would like meet what they're probably going to request anyway. It would like be anticipating
At some point, I'm sure they're going to. That's kind of the trend right now. I don't know if, Santa Ana's Employees Association or the Police Association, if they've even brought that up. So I don't think they'll object to this business day, the word business being added for clarification.
I do believe that in order to make changes to the code, that would be a city council action as well.
Right. Yeah. It has to go to the employees and then city council. So I don't, it's going to be a process. It's going to take a little bit longer to add a word like business in there, but I think that's one of the easier things that we're going to have to deal with to add the word business.
Yeah, I think we're going to probably need their approval anyway, right? I would want to get city council's input.
They're not going to give any input.
Affects them.
They will not give any input. They'll either approve or disapprove. City council does not have input on what the personnel commission does, but they can approve or not approve. Yeah, they don't, we're autonomous in that sense. So the only ones that have input besides the legal counsel is the police association and the employees association for City of Santa Ana.
They are.
Yeah, you start getting too many opinions, correct? And you're going to never get it done. Pardon?
The city council is technically are technically city employees, correct?
No, they're not. They're elected officials.
Oh, okay.
They have no say. They're not a part of a union or anything. They're elected officials.
Okay.
So I think that what Jenna was saying is our rules do not need to be approved by the council, but if we make a change, we are proposing a change to the code, then the city council needs to make a change to the code.
Right.
So it's almost like a whole separate thing.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying, once we're done with this, if it's going to affect the civil code, then it would go to not just the employees association and police association, the city council too. But little things like this, like words added, grammatical errors, it still goes through the process, but it's a lot easier. But if we start making like this huge change, like we were saying, oh, they may bring an appeal, they don't have to. That's a big change. So that's something that's going to go through a process. Because even if you read the next section, it says the employee may answer the notice. It should say they should answer the notice, but it says may. To me, that's kind of gray. That's kind of like they don't have to.
I mean, that's referring to a Skelly hearing, and they do not have to participate in the Skelly hearing.
Right.
So the code in the municipal code says, except as provided in section 9 through 118.4, blah, 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 not to exceed 10 days unless the appointing authority authorizes a longer time.
Right. So they would just add 10 business days. On the
facts and circumstances of the case and shall be sufficient to afford the employee ample opportunity to review the material relied on.
Yeah, it's pretty. The civil code is pretty broad, but adding is more broader than our rules are. So we can even mirror what the code says, like exactly what you just read. Lori can literally copy and paste that and slap that in here. Then there's no issue. If we do that, there's no issue at all. There's no need for police association, employees association, or the council to approve because it mirrors what the the civil code already says. So that might be an easier way to deal with it. What do you think, Jenna? What do you think, Jenna?
Michelle, can you point me to the section that you were just referring to?
It's Article 5, Chapter 9, Article 5, Section 9-118.3. And then it's the first paragraph.
Because really, technically, our rules should mirror civil code and vice versa. And civil code should supersede our rules, unless like where we have the freedom to like change rules like we did for recording, that kind of thing. So if it expands more on the 10 days, like the detail that you just read, I would think it's better just to copy and paste it and slap it in here. Then it's not that big of a deal.
I feel like I have an old version of the rules. Let me pull it up online. I'm sorry.
It does provide the leniency that I was thinking would make sense. Like if it's over a holiday break, I could see the appointing authority seeing that as like a reasonable like excuse to extend the 10 days.
No, that makes sense. That's like really logical.
Because it'd be hard for them to get a hold of the lawyer, put it together, talk to the labor union, like do all of the things that would probably be necessary in order to submit an appeal.
No, but it's good because you know how this is how I just totally compartmentalize people, that a lawyer for the employee, where he keeps saying, oh, you guys don't follow your rules, you don't do this, you don't do that. I can kind of see where that viewpoint comes in, because our rules say one thing and city municipal code says something else. So if they mirror, then it's going to be more beneficial.
Yeah, it leaves us less room for reopening cases as well. It could save us money and time and everything.
Why can't I find it online?
That's how.
Did you find
I'm like, it was just here.
So let me show you how to find that online.
I'll send the link
I
in
am
the
so
comments.
sorry. I don't know why I cannot find this. And
so if you go,
oh, it's under boards and commissions.
If you go, can you guys hear me?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so if you go to santaana.org and then go to City Hall and then to the departments, the city departments, and scroll down to Human Resources. You click on Human Resources. I mean, there's probably a faster way to get it, but I know for sure it's here. And then and then if you click on there's like a bar in the middle that scrolls, and it's only 2 items. And the second item is a Santa Ana Municipal Code and Charter. So you click on that.
I shared the link on the screen that's being shared. If you just copy and paste it into your thing, it'll lead you right to it.
Oh yeah, there you go in the chat.
Oh, but it won't let us copy that, unfortunately. So I have the code pulled.
Oh, it won't?
No. If you put it in chat, I think it will. Can you put it in chat, Michelle?
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't want it to open my phone. I'm on my laptop.
No.
So I'm under HR. And where did you say it was at, Lori? Under HR?
There's a picture that takes up most of the screen. It's kind of on the biggest portion on the right-hand side. Go to the second, when the second picture scrolls through, it'll say municipal code, and then it's right there. Yeah. And then we're in chapter 9. Chapter
Perfect.
9.
I need to start using my laptop more often because it wants to update while I'm working.
Okay. So then where was the specific where was the specific section that we were talking about?
So it's the first sentence of,
under general provisions, right?
Under section 9-118.3, employees answer. So under notice of proposed adverse action.
Okay, so, and that's just talking about, okay.
I'm gonna have to go that too.
That's fine, but that's without, there's a good possibility without searching the code that days is also defined in the code. Because most municipal codes would have that. And so it might define days as calendar or business somewhere.
It does. When you look above, it says calendar days. But the fact that it says the appointing authority can authorize a longer time, I think that's fine then. Because if it does happen to be over like the holidays or whatever, the appointing authority, I mean, I would anticipate would then authorize a longer time.
Okay. And Michelle, so remember mind, something, like, whatever scenario. Michelle, remember something, that if our rules and policies are silent in something, the civil code supersedes our policies. So since our policies say 10 days and the civil code expands on that and gives a little bit more freedom, then if I was a lawyer looking at that, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going by the civil code. Forget what the board's policies say. Civil code says this. Civil code always supersedes our policies and procedures.
Okay. So we almost don't even need to put anything.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to, I don't think we, I mean, we could copy and paste it, but we don't need to. We could just for the sake of the next board member that looks at them and wants to do the same thing. But we don't have to.
So we're saying to remove the business?
I don't know. What do you guys want to do? You want to have it mirror the civil code or just leave it the way it is?
My fear would be one day they update the civil code and they forget to update the hearing or like the
that's going to be
board.
That's going to be a part, that's going to be the responsibility on the personnel code. I mean, personnel board going forward, that if a change like that happens in the civil code, then the personnel commission at that time has to make that change. I can't see them making that big of a change anytime soon, but hey, you never can tell what'll happen. So we can just go ahead and slap it in there.
Maybe we should suggest to, yeah. We could, I mean, we can mirror it for now then and possibly suggest to our like city council members to include that as a requirement, like when you update certain sections of the municipal code, to also have to notify. Or
well, it's supposed to happen.
To also have to notify.
Like I said, I think if we just mirror it and just copy and paste it in, there's not going to even be an issue. Once it's explained, they see that it mirrors, we won't even have to worry about it getting approved or not. I'm sure they will. Why can't I find that section? Jenna, what section is it?
118.3. 9-118.3.
So, but first you have to go to Article 5.
Thank you.
Yeah, then you go to 9.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's why I was so confused as well. So, but we found it.
Section 9. Yeah, section 9.
I was like, wait a minute, where is it? I actually like it better like online. There it is. Okay. I like it better online because it's like so much. I wish I had a laptop in front of me when we're at the hearings because it's so much easier to find like this and flipping back and forth. Oh yeah, so I think if we do that, where it says each employee shall have 10 calendar days after receipt, if we just copy and paste that and slap it in there, what we're talking about, it mirrors. It's not even going to be a big deal. What do you think, Lori?
To copy not to exceed 10 days unless the appointing authority authorizes a longer time?
Yeah, since it'll mirror what's in the municipal code. I mean, I don't know. What does everybody else think? That's just my thought.
I think that I like that idea so that it's just clear in case someone's reading the wrong document. Like say someone's only looking at this or only looking at that, that they know that it aligns, but they're not confused on what the rules are.
Sorry, I got a call in, and even though my calls are blocked, something still came in.
I do agree with that as well, because when I read it too, that was my first thought. So I agree with adding that. This is Angie, sorry.
So is that?
So yeah, we can just, yeah, I like that. Just copy and paste it and slap it in there.
Okay.
Can I make a comment that I just noticed? Appointing authority is capitalized, which would normally indicate that that term is defined, and I don't see a definition. So just something to consider. And I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who the appointing authority is.
On my side, it's not capitalized.
Yeah, mine is not either.
Shame.
Oh.
If at the very beginning it's capitalized and it's capitalized throughout, the appointing authority is typically, you know, the department head, the person who has the final decision on disciplinary action. So I don't know, maybe that, you know, there's a definition of it in the code and we can just refer to the code, but just a comment.
It's a good point.
Would that, so like say it was a police like employee appeal, it would be the appointing authority of that department?
Section 9-2.5 has a list.
Oh, okay. There's a list of the who's who.
Michelle, like for your example, the police, that would be the chief.
Oh, it says. Oh, okay. Ooh, that might be a conflict.
2.5. 2.5.
I guess we could just be, I don't know, 10 calendar days. So, like other cities use 30, and we're not even saying business days.
Yeah.
I know that we're not
days.
like following other cities per se. It's just I would want to like do like I know that in general it's going to be like a movement moving forward to protect like employee rights. Like
I just want to point out.
So like.
Well, we want to remember that Santa Ana is unique. We're not like any other city in the state of California, so we don't want to start.
We're supposed to be better like though, and like
we are, but we don't need. You don't want to give too much time.
I do want.
We don't want to give too much time.
I just think 10 is excessively low.
So I do.
No,
want
to
for 14 days.
I do
10 business days is a lot of days.
I do want to point out that the section
but it's not
that we're in right
days.
now. I want to point out that the section we're in right now is talking about the Skelly hearing process. This is
and
not
that's a state law.
Yeah, and so making changes from 10 to 30, I don't think is going to work here. This is the Skelly process. We go a little bit further in how much time they have to file an appeal. Now that might be something we can change to 30 days, but this is the Skelly process here. We can't change.
And Michelle, we can't make a change that's any different with the Skelly process, because that Skelly process is the state and public employees process. We cannot change that. That supersedes even over the city. So we can't change that.
How come other cities are able to do 30 days then?
You're talking
that's
about
probably within their.
You're talking about the hearing.
I think you're able to exceed it. It's just, so like in the US labor code, like you're always able to provide more rights. You just can't take away rights. So like you wouldn't be able to give them less time, but you can always give them more time. Kind of like when our city council voted on minimum wage for the people that were working at grocery stores during COVID, like they were able to give them more rights.
I know, but this is a process that happens before it even gets to the personnel board. So we don't have jurisdiction over this. If the employee chooses not to make an appeal to the personnel board, we don't even see this. This is the disciplinary process that is subject to the management of the city, the managers of the city. So we don't have purview over this until an appeal is filed. Then we can say, okay, this is when appeal needs to be filed. But this is a process. We're just defining the process of what happens before an employee can choose to bring it to the personnel board. This is something we don't have any jurisdiction over.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that what this section stipulates for the employee's answer, I think if we're going to do anything to the section we're referring to in our policies, copying and pasting the verbiage here is safe. In other words, it coincides with the municipal code, and that supersedes us anyways, and it's within the Skelly policy, so we're safe. I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with it. But I mean, it'd be nice if the Skelly rules change to give more time, but they're not going to, because then you'd have hearings and stuff taking 3 months to even get to that point, and they want to get it done quickly.
Well, for California, it says to state personnel board, regardless of whether an employee requests a Skelly-Coleman hearing, he has the right to file an appeal within 30 calendar days.
But that's the state.
So how are they over? But they're like overstepping that also and exceeding dates.
Yeah, but that's the state for the state employees. Yeah, that's a state.
If you scroll down, the section that you're talking about is later in our document. So this is now, if you go down to the next paragraph, it says it must also inform the right. Okay, hold on. So initiating an appeal, so in section 2.2, the employee receiving his or her appointing authority's notice of adverse decision has 10 days after receipt to file a written notice. We can change that, but we can't change the Skelly process.
Yeah, the Skelly process we can't.
Right.
And again, like I was saying, Michelle, anything that has to do with the state is still different from us because it's larger. They have more employees in the state association than the city of Santa Ana does, even between their police and their regular employees. They are huge. So there are rules that they follow Skelly, but they have a little bit more leniency.
I'm just using it as like, it shows that they have been able to increase the days. So obviously there's a legal way that we are able to also do so. And especially if it's in the favor of making our city like a city that more people want to work at, that would only help us to, to be more competitive versus an employee who wants to work at Brea or wants to work at Santa Ana. They choose us because we have better protection for our employees, and it gives us a competitive edge.
It's still the state. It's larger. The employees base is larger than ours. So that's why they give so many days, because there's state employees are from Sacramento down to San Diego. So it's oftentimes they have to give them more time because it is such a vast area that's covered. So that's why they probably were able to do that. We don't really need to do that because we're just a small city with a smaller population of employees, both police and city employees. So we don't, the 10 business days
I want
is
us
good.
to stay like an attractive employer, I guess. I don't want us to lose like the top talent just because we're not providing the same rights that other cities are.
I'll tell you the reason why people come
30 days.
Right. No, the reason why people come work for Santa Ana is because Santa Ana pays their employees more than most other cities do. That's including the police department down to the clerks. They make more money than most cities do. That's the appeal. That's the attractive part to coming to work for Santa Ana, is how much they pay, then the benefits, and then the protection.
If I could just also chime in, is that I think 10 days is pretty normal as far as cities that I've worked with. 30, I don't know if I've ever seen. So that's quite a long time for a city to wait for an appeal to happen. So just my 2 cents.
Even the unions, they're 10 business days. So that way you have the lenience, how do you say that? Not the flexibility of not having to worry about weekends and holidays. Especially when you're talking about December, think about all the holidays in December and the long holidays in November. That's why the business days is becoming the trend. So the only suggestion I would just say, just mirror what that section says in the municipal code into our section that we're talking about right now, and we'll be safe. We won't have a big issue with the police association or the Employees Association. And then if we want to expand on it later on, like Lori was saying, that we can talk about that there.
Okay, if we want to mirror it, can we note that so that if the union does come back to us, we can say, no, like, don't bring that up with us. We would suggest that you bring that up with the city council or like whoever's in charge of changing the municipal code, and then we will mirror that.
Well, if we're mirroring that section already, they won't even bring it up to us. It won't be an issue because it mirrors this municipal. Always remember, Michelle, municipal code supersedes our rules and policy. So where our rules and policy are silent, municipal code sets precedence over. So if we just mirror this section to the municipal code section, we'll be fine. They're not going to even, I'll guarantee you the union's not even worried about it.
Okay.
So Lori, from what word to what word in that section are you going to copy and paste into our rules and policies?
I copied and pasted. So in the paragraph starting with code section 9-118.3 permits the employee receiving the notice of proposed adverse action the opportunity to respond to the proposed disciplinary action, and I inserted not to exceed 10 days unless the appointing authority authorizes a longer time. I deleted within 10 days of receipt of the notice of adverse action.
Okay.
Might need to. I think it still needs to say within or not to exceed. I put in the comments that it was copied directly from the civil code.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do on my side, I'm just going to put it to the side of it, and then whatever we decide later.
Okay.
And then on the comments on, well, because I'm working off of Google Documents. So you know how you can make little comments?
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. So when I look at it, I remember.
The next paragraph reads, the employee may answer the notice of proposed adverse action in writing. Okay, we already read this. So this is talking about the Skelly hearing. This is just the process of the Skelly hearing. And then we get to 2.2, initiating an appeal. 2.2 says, the employee receiving his or her appointing authority's notice of adverse decision has 10 days after receipt to file a written notice requesting appeal of the adverse decision to the Personnel Board, Code Section 9-118. Unless the employee files a timely notice of appeal, the employee does not have standing to appeal to the board. The appeal must be filed with the Executive Director of Personnel Services. There is no particular format required for the appeal, only that it be a written request and be filed in a timely manner. Now, I'm going to keep on reading because it expands on that a little bit more. 2.3, establishing an appeal file. Well, I just want to say, basically, it says that if somebody does file it, I'm going to keep reading, but I just want to make a note. If somebody does file an appeal and it is longer than 10 days, then it's up to the secretary to reach out to the board chair and say, hey, we have an appeal. It wasn't in an obviously timely manner. So basically it wasn't within 10 days. And then at that point, the board chair would then make a determination whether or not to hear the appeal. So there's, even if it is more than 10 days, the board chair still decides if they'll allow the appeal to go through if there's extenuating circumstances.
And that's where we had talked that we wanted to, when something says the personnel chair makes that decision, we wanted to change anything that said that to the personnel commission. Okay. So that as a whole, we're all making that decision going forward.
Okay, so we'll get down to that.
Yeah, so when we get there.
2.3, establishing an appeal file. Upon filing a notice of appeal, the Director of Personnel Services will immediately transmit the notice of appeal to the Secretary of the Personnel Board, who is also a member of the Director's staff. The Board Secretary then determines if the written request from the adversely affected employee is timely. If not clearly timely, the Secretary will confer with the Chair to determine the timeliness of the request for hearing and shall notify the employee if the request was not filed in a timely fashion and that the Board will not hear the request. A copy of this notice shall likewise be forwarded to the Director of Personnel Services and the Chair of the Board. So you're saying that you want to replace Chair with the entire Board. Now, if that is the case, then we will have to establish a meeting and agendize that, since everybody will be together meeting on an issue. So we'll have to wait until we have a meeting to be able to respond to the, I'm just saying this is what the process will have to be.
Right.
Is that what we want to do?
So what do you think, ladies? And Michelle, since you're acting chair right now, what do you think?
I think so. I think that would be, yeah. Is
so
it
change where it says
just slow it down, but considering that, you know, we have pending cases.
Well, this is not going to affect anything right now until we vote on it, and then it goes through the whole process. So it's not going to affect any of the, I mean, okay, so where the policies gives the board freedom to make changes to the rules going forward at any time, we can make that change.
I didn't mean in that. To clarify, I didn't mean like based on what we're doing now. I just meant like we already have a very slow process. So I think including something that's a more democratic voting system is not contributing to the slowing down of the process versus what is actually the bottleneck in this situation, which is that we're only hearing one case at a time. Well, I don't think this will be the bottleneck for employees, is what I'm saying.
No, but remember something, our board policies as they are written gives us the freedom to say going forward from this point on, any hearings after the current hearing we're already in, because we don't want to change rules now in the current hearing because it's already started. But let's say going forward after this hearing is completed, all decisions are going to be made by the board. If we say something like that, we have the ability to do that as the rules are already written. So this is going to be going forward like indefinitely. So where we're at right now in the hearing, we don't want to make no big changes because we're in the middle of the hearing, but going forward, this is something that's going to supersede everything. But if we want to say going forward, the hearings after this one, everything's going to come to the full board, we can do that for the next hearing. As long as we let that be known and that's stated, and that's how it's going to be, we have that freedom with this document to do that. But for the purpose of going forward in writing, effective with everything, once it gets approved, we can do that now. So that's what I'm saying. So for these rules, do we want to now put personnel board? Is that what we want to say rather than just the chair? Because then it makes it easier. We just replace everywhere it says approved by the chair. Now it's going to say approved by the board, or it can say approved by the majority of the board. So that this way, if Lori and Jenna can't get the whole board, and let's say the majority of the board's available, and they decide, yes, we're going to listen to this stuff and we're going to read it. What do you think, Lori? Does that give a little bit more flexibility if you have a majority of the board rather than the whole board?
I mean, it is more flexible, but you're adding these into the process to slow everything down. You can put the chair and the vice chair, or you know, you can do whatever you want. I'm just, you know, concerned about, you know, slowing anything down.
Chair and vice chair are good too. This is for the purpose of establishing an appeal. So we're just talking about this section right now.
It's only those appeals that are filed that are filed more than 10 days after. So
okay, there you go. Yeah. Okay.
So far I haven't received any appeals that are filed more than 10 days. But this would give them, you know, they currently have the option if it's more than 10 days, and I would just have to confer with the chair and make sure it's okay with the chair. And if, you know, and so we're just expanding that decision from just the chair to more people. But it's only those appeals that come within 10 days are a slam dunk. They just get a number.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying that. So this is just for anything that's past the 10 days.
Right.
So yeah, so Michelle, I think we can probably put the chair and the vice chair, just, or what would be better, Lori, chair or vice chair, or chair and vice chair?
If we say or, then that means whichever one is available. If we say and, it has to be both.
So what do you ladies think?
I would say just change it to the board. And then as long as we have a majority vote.
Okay.
Angie and Gabby?
They've already gone over 10 days. I know right now for COVID, a lot of the laws that were like, you only have so long were extended. So I think certain circumstances, the board, I think the board's fine.
Angie, Gabby,
like right
Bernice.
now we have someone who's a chair that's like HR, has a lot of HR experience, but say like in the future, like we have someone that has a lot of knowledge that isn't in that position, we would want them to have like their input, I would think.
And just to be clear, this is really like a jurisdictional issue. It's just, is it timely, and it's essentially saying the board can't accept it. And so the issue would be looking at, I don't know, let's say like an email got delayed. They filed it on the 10th night and an email somehow their power went out, or, you know, it's kind of one of those weird issues. It's not that if it's filed in 15 days, you can't make an exception to that, if that makes sense.
Angie, Bernice, and Gabby, what do you think?
I do. This is Angie. I do like adding the board, but I do like what Nellie said earlier too about saying like the majority of the board or something like that, along the lines of that. And also, I mean, this is also only if it's comes after the 10 days. So I adding the board in there is fine for me. And like Lori mentioned, this rarely happens too.
And if this came to the board, we would still have, you know, the same rules that we have to make any decision. You know, we would have to have a quorum, we would have to, and then we'd have to have a majority of the quorum. I guess in this case, we would, the board would vote whether it was timely.
Mm-hmm.
I think we lost Bernice. Gabby, what did you think? Gabby, are you there?
Well, if we did lose Berenice, that should be noted. But I think we still have a quorum, correct, Lori?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, Gabby's not responding and Bernice is off.
Why we still have quorum?
We still have quorum?
Yeah, we still have quorum.
Okay. Okay, so you want me to change chair to board?
I was trying to see if Gabby could put her input, but I don't know if she can hear us because she shows it, but she's muted. I mean, we'll still vote at the end, so it's still open to discussion.
Okay.
All this stuff is just suggestions right now.
Wait, Gabby just got off, Lori.
Gabby, what?
Just logged off.
Gabby,
yeah, Gabby's gone too.
How many people do we have quorum?
No.
We no longer have quorum.
No, we don't.
Let's see if she logs back in, but.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, wait, hold on.
I'm not sure if this is her. There's a phone number.
There she is.
Somebody just called in. Can you please identify yourself? You're on mute.
Oh, you can see Gabby again.
Yeah, I can see Gabby.
Here we go.
Hi, Lori. It's Bernice. My call had dropped.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And then Gabby, can you hear us?
She's muted.
I think she's still logging in with her audio.
God, I love technology.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay.
Ladies, in case you missed it, we said that we'll vote on this at the end, but for now we added in majority of the board. And then once we get to the end of the document, then we'll vote on what we want and don't want.
Do you want me to go through and put, I'm already site checking it, but I could also put just, my legal comments. I know it will be reviewed again by the city's legal team, but just for example, the one we were just looking at, it has notice of appeal in capitals, but then the next paragraph just calls it a request. And it's I find that very confusing.
There's a lot of inconsistencies in the document. I noticed it too.
Yeah.
I think that would be.
I would.
Okay. I
think that would be very helpful. If the board secretary determines that the employee's request for appeal is timely, the secretary shall agendize the matter for the next board meeting for the purpose of setting dates for the pre-hearing conference and hearing in the matter at the board's earliest convenience. The secretary shall likewise notify the employee that the appeal has been initiated and likewise inform the employee of the board action number assigned to the appeal and inform the employee to reference this number as the file number on all subsequent materials filed concerning this appeal. A copy of this notice shall also be served upon the appointing authority. In this notice, the secretary shall further inform the employee of the board's next meeting date and that its purpose will be to set dates for the pre-hearing conference and hearing. The notice shall also invite the employee to draft a statement of the case. This is a written summary which, in no more than 3 pages, states the employee's position concerning the adverse action taken by the appointing authority. Submission of a statement of the case is entirely optional by the employee, but if undertaken, the statement shall be submitted to the board secretary prior to the date of the board meeting to schedule the pre-hearing conference. The employee's statement of the case will then be distributed to the board at or before the meeting to schedule the pre-hearing conference, along with the appointing authority's notice of adverse decision from which the employee is appealing. Distribution of the statement of the case and the notice of adverse decision do not constitute evidence at this point of the process, but are simply tools to provide the board members with the general scope of the appeal. If the employee elects not to file a statement of the case, the notice of adverse decision shall still be distributed to the board members to provide a general scope of the issues to be heard. Upon receipt of the employee's request for appeal and determining its timeliness, the board secretary shall assign a personnel board action number to the appeal. The number shall be composed of the 4-digit year followed by a dash and the sequential number of the matter. For instance, the 6th appeal initiated in 2014 would be number 2014-06. All subsequent papers filed in any particular appeal shall carry the board action number of the appeal, and the parties shall also be so informed at the board meeting to schedule the pre-hearing conference. (2.4) Scheduling hearing dates. The board, at its first agendized meeting concerning any appeal, will set the matter for a pre-hearing and hearing. At the meeting wherein the pre-hearing conference is scheduled, the board will distribute the rules required for compliance and the mandatory pre-hearing conference, and likewise apprise the parties of the board action number assigned. Distribute the employee's statement of the case, if any, and the notice of adverse decision to each board member and to the respective parties. The parties will also be informed that all discovery in the matter is to be completed at the latest 20 days prior to the date of the pre-hearing, and that any subpoenas needed for discovery may be obtained in blank from the board secretary. All subpoenas must be completed and served by the parties themselves. The parties will further be informed that the practice of the city is that all hearings are open to the public, unless specifically requested to be closed as a personnel matter, Code Section 9-11B. Requests for a closed hearing must be made to the board secretary at or before the scheduled pre-hearing conference. The parties shall also discuss whether service of process may be made by facsimile or by email, and if they agree, said agreement will be noted by the secretary in the minutes of the meeting and service may be made accordingly. The filing of any document with the board may be made by serving the board secretary via email. Distribution of said filing will then be made to board members by the secretary. 2.5 pre-hearing conference. The pre-hearing conference is a mandatory meeting of both parties, in person or by phone. Actual party attendance is not required if represented by counsel, and their legal representatives, if any, with the board chair, the vice chair, the legal advisor, and the board secretary. The purpose of the pre-hearing conference is to make certain that all of the preliminary matters prior to the actual hearing are accomplished or are in the process of being accomplished.
Now, Lori, this is where we had talked about in the beginning, we want to make a change to this section that rather than it saying with the board chair, the vice chair, we would want it to say the entire personnel board.
Do we want to say the entire personnel board, or do we want to say
or the majority? How about the more, we'll say that, so for consistency, we'll say the majority of the personnel board. That way it makes it easier for us. And we're consistent with what we said earlier.
If someone misses a pre-hearing conference, are they then
they'll be out?
They're off the entire case?
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's giving more risk, because we talked about this in the beginning, Jenna, before you were with us, that we talked about the fact that the chair, because originally we were told only the chair was in attendance, and then we found it in the rules that it says the chair and the vice chair. And we're like, well, why aren't they in there if it says it in writing? So then that's when we discussed about having the board. But what we were saying earlier, the majority of the board is a good idea. Plus, not only does it define it, it puts responsibility in the whole personnel board. So if you can't be there at the pre-hearing, you're done, because the employee has the right to have consistency, and it has to have the majority. So as long as we have a majority and they stay consistent, then that's it. And that puts it on the personnel commissioners going forward in the future that, hey, this is serious. You need to be here and be consistent. So it makes everybody accountable.
Now, in the pre-hearing, we're just reviewing the witnesses and the evidence that they might be bringing forward and the processes and stuff like that. All of those things are going to be brought before the board. In previous meetings where we discussed, I don't think you were there, Nellie, it was discussed about having a majority, but not making it a requirement, so that if you did not attend the pre-hearing, you were not off the case. So that was a statement made by, I believe Denise made that statement. And I can't remember if it was you, Angie, that was at that meeting. And I mean, obviously there would have been 4 people at the meeting, but.
That's a good idea though. The way you just put it, that's a good idea, putting it a majority, but that, like what you just said, if somebody can't make it or chooses not to make it, they're not kept out of the hearing. As long as there's not going to be a problem with counsel on that. Jenna, do you think there's a problem if the majority of the board members are scheduled and there's some kind of legal language in there that doesn't omit someone who chooses not to be there? from still being on the hearing for pre-hearing?
No, I think I don't see an issue with that. And I just caution, having advised other boards, that you do have resignations like we have had in this one. And so the fear would be we keep going through a hearing and we lose a quorum, and then we're in big trouble. So I wouldn't want to kind of knock anyone out if they are unavailable for a pre-hearing conference.
I think it's good to have it the way Lori just stated it, that Angie stated. I think that's a good way of doing it. So again, we need to have folks realizing that Personnel Commission is very unique from the rest of the commissions. We don't have a limit of how many times we can meet, how long we can meet, because our commission is probably one of the most important ones because we're dealing with people's employment. So I like this part for the pre-hearing part. That's a good suggestion, Lori, that Angie gave that one. It's a good one.
2.51, discovery. In most appeals, discovery will be limited because the parties are familiar with the issues resulting in the adverse action, and the preliminary rules require full disclosure of the documentary and evidentiary record from the appointing authority to the employee prior to the required Skelly hearing. Prior to the pre-hearing conference, the appointing authority must confirm that it has provided the appealing employee with all of the documents, witness statements, reports, and any physical evidence relied upon by the appointing authority in making the adverse decision which is being appealed, or that the appointing authority has provided the employee an opportunity to review this evidence. The appointing authority will be required to represent full compliance with this requirement to the board chair at the pre-hearing conference. Each side may also discover relevant facts and contentions known to the other side. Among the types of information that a party may discover are: 1, the names and addresses of all witnesses the other party intends to call at the hearing, and the substance of the anticipated testimony, similar to the disclosure of the substance of expert testimony in civil litigation. 2, written statements of a party or witness, documents, reports, and other writings the other party will introduce into evidence. And 3, the personnel file of the employee appellant, including but not limited to applications, promotional information, and performance appraisals of the employee. Nothing, however, is authorized as discoverable, which would be privileged from disclosure under the law. If subpoenas are necessary to compel discovery, they should be requested from the board secretary. Subpoenas are issued in blank. Huh? I'm sorry, what? Oh. I screwed up. Hold on.
I want to finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Subpoenas are issued in blank and must be completed by the parties. Service of any subpoena is also the responsibility of the party serving the document, and all discovery must be completed at least 20 days prior to the date of the pre-hearing.
2.52, discovery motions.
Lori, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Earlier in this section, we had the appointing authority will be required to represent full compliance with this requirement to the board chair. Are we going to be consistent and say to the majority of the board and replace that, or leave it as is?
Okay. Okay, I got that.
I just added in there so that we can save time.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, please do. Please do. I don't want to, you know, I want to keep us moving, but I want to make sure. So please stop me at any time.
Do you want to stop?
Okay.
We have
10 minutes. Yeah. 2.52, discovery motions. Any motion to compel discovery must be filed with the board secretary not less than 15 days prior to the pre-hearing. Opposition shall be filed at least 10 days prior to the pre-hearing, and any reply shall be filed at least 5 days prior to the pre-hearing. If a motion to compel is filed, the moving party must show at the time of the pre-hearing that the other side objected to the discovery request and that the parties have met and conferred about the requested discovery. If the moving party cannot make such a showing, its motion will be denied. Absent.
Lori, can we add in business days under where it says 15 days, 10 days, and 5 days? Can we kick in business days? Can we add that word? 15
Yes.
business days? Just for consistency, since we're making those suggestions.
Okay. If the moving party cannot make such a showing, its motion will be denied, absent total failure to participate in discovery by the opposing party. If the party upon which discovery was propounded fails to respond or cooperate, it is likely that the motion to compel will be granted, absent a controlling privilege or justifiable mitigation for the lack of cooperation. Pre-hearing discovery disputes will be determined by the chair and the vice chair in consultation with the legal advisor at the pre-hearing, and depending upon the ruling, it may extend the discovery timeframe and continue the pre-hearing process. Failure to comply with these requirements and deadlines may result in a party being precluded from bringing discovery motions thereafter.
Lori, let's add in the majority of the board.
Yep. So this is something that also came up in a previous meeting in which we were discussing we have, in our current case, we have one of the parties did not bring their discovery forward, even though the case started, so they did not comply to this. What, you know, are we going to allow that or not allow that? So there was a discussion about this at a previous meeting, which we were talking about the rules. And I believe the idea brought forward was to make it more stern that they should be doing this. I don't know, Jenna, if you can remember that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to be cautious not to talk about obviously anything that we have knowledge of due to a closed hearing.
We can keep it generalized.
No, absolutely. I think that the board has discussed in the past, you know, concerns with you know, will people comply with the discovery rules that are set forth in these rules. So it's a very, you know, it's very hard to enforce these types of things. I will say that. And I think the board has asked me in the past, you know, excluding evidence is a very big, a very significant ruling to make. And so, you know, just consider that, you know, if you want to change these rules to be more strict, then that would likely lead to evidence being excluded from a hearing, which that's a significant, you know, sanction, you know, in civil court, that's a significant sanction. So just my thoughts on that.
Well, I think that if, so we have two things. We have the part of the rules that gives us the freedom to adjust the rules when we're in a hearing, where we have some freedom to adjust. But I do think that excluding it from what we're currently working on, if we want our rules to be taken seriously and not have an attorney turn around and say, oh, well, you guys don't follow the rules, if they're strict and we follow them, it's going to be helpful. But if we're within a meeting or within a hearing and somebody says, oh my God, I just discovered this, just came to my attention, I want to submit it now, and we're already 10 meetings into a hearing, our rules give us that freedom to make that decision at that point. But what's going to happen with the next employee if they want to do the same thing, because we set a precedence already. So I like you're saying, I think we don't want to admit evidence because aren't they supposed to turn it in discovery within 24 hours or something like that once they find something new? Legally, isn't there like a rule to that?
In civil court, you are supposed to, if you discover something that was not previously provided, I don't think it's within 24 hours. A lot
there's
of
some kind of limit, right?
Well, no. So if someone, if what would happen in court is if they did not provide that, the judge would decide whether there was good cause not to provide it, or, the judge might even consider what the evidence is and how important it is to the case, which is, kind of a little counterintuitive. So, I mean, these issues are tricky. And I will also remind you that a lot of administrative hearings don't have any discovery provisions. So this is unique to the city. And it does complicate things, certainly. I think the intent is, good, but it does certainly complicates the issues.
So if we leave it the way it's written, it says may result in a party being precluded from bringing discovery motions thereafter. That gives more freedom there to the board to decide what they want to do. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it gives discretion there, and it also gives discretion. Sorry to jump ahead, but under the next section, the exchange of witness and exhibit lists, it also says failure to provide those may result in a party being precluded from calling witnesses and offering exhibits not previously identified. So that's along the same lines. It's leaving the discretion within the board to determine whether to accept that evidence, even though it's in violation of the rules.
So it gives us a little bit more free. So as a board, we have to decide, do we want to leave this hammock kind of sections there, meaning it's like lax? Do we want to leave it there, or do we want to get stricter with it? Ladies, what do you think? Angie, Bernice, Gabby, Michelle.
I'm kind of like unsure, because there are circumstances where changing it would be an issue.
Well, do we want to stay lenient and give that freedom, or do we want to get stricter?
I think we get
stricter. It already says at the beginning for the employee that they're supposed to provide all that information directly to the employee anyway. So like by failing to do all of this stuff on the other side, they're not meeting like POBAR or even these codes or the municipal code. So like even if we admit it into evidence, all we're doing is admitting evidence that shows that they're not meeting. Like we can admit evidence without it having, like it can be used as evidence to show like negatively that evidence is being provided that does not meet the employee's rights. But I don't know that I would be more on the side to admit everything and then just say why it's like not pertinent or why it shows actually failure on the behalf of the person submitting it, and just like admit it.
Angie, Gabby, Bernice, what do you think?
I think we just get stricter and do not allow anything past whatever we decide is the rules.
Angie? Angie, Gabby?
If I may, I highly recommend that you leave yourself with some discretion there. You don't, I don't think the board wants to tie its hands so tightly, but that's just, you know, my opinion.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like on the fence. I'm going back and forth, but I feel like I do like the fact that if something is brought up later on that we can use, but we say that we don't want to use it anymore, or that our rules say differently, then that's gonna suck for that employee, you know, or the city or whatever, you know. So that's kind of where I'm at with it if we get stricter with it. So yeah, I'm kind of going
Gabby. Well, I'm going to put on my document, I'm going to put something that we want to revisit, how strict we want to make this section. So we don't have to beat it right now. We can deal with it later. Gabby, did you have any thoughts? No, if we lost Gabby.
Okay, I made a note of that in the document, and then I'm going to go ahead, since it's just a few minutes before 8, I'm going to stop us here, and then we can pick up at the next meeting.
We did good tonight. I gotta say, I do like the way Google Documents works because it's a lot easier than Word.
Right. So this is the end of the business calendar. Do I have any comments from the board members?
I'm good.
Any comments from the staff?
I believe Gabby wanted us to re-go through the minutes so that the minutes are accurate. So if we can identify the minutes, and then the board will be approving them. That's what she said earlier. She wants a recap on all the minutes.
At the end of the meeting?
So that we can make sure that the minutes are accurate, and that when they're posted, that the board will approve it.
Okay.
Is that right, Gabby?
Did we approve them already?
No, what Lily's saying is that Gabby would like us to review the points that we will be adding into the minutes so that we can make sure that those are accurate.
For this meeting.
And then we'll type those up and put them in the minutes, and then you guys will have a chance to look at them and then vote on approval or not. And I believe in the process, when we send out those minutes, if there's an error in them or something you want to add, you can let us know, email me directly before the meeting. We can't put it in if it's been posted, but we can certainly make that note, and we can add it in before we approve.
And you can approve it with an amendment to the minutes.
Approve it with an amendment to add in those points in the notes or the change in the minutes. So you can say, we'll approve these minutes with these XYZ changes. Okay. So you don't have to accept the minutes exactly as they are. You can say, hey, I want to see this change, I want to see that change, and then I'll approve it. And then we can vote on that. So Lily, you want to read out some of the points?
Sure. Okay, the first point was that Lori was going to share Michelle's changes that she submitted. So the document that Michelle submitted, Lori was going to share that screen so that the board could see. Second point, Michelle suggested to have a non-hearing review to match the state appeal board. Next point. Nellie suggested sending Michelle's changes to the board. So after the meeting tonight, Lori was going to send the changes. Next, Nellie suggested continuing to read the current rules for hearing appeals, and then the board could suggest changes along the way. Next, Nellie suggested adding in action after adverse in section 2. Michelle and Nellie suggested business days in section 2. Lori changed not to exceed 10 days. Nellie said the board wants to include the chair and the majority of the board in making decisions throughout the document. Jenna will be making changes for inconsistencies in the document. Nellie suggested adding in, business days to section 2, E on discovery, or on to section, the E section on 2 discovery motions. And Nellie suggested revisiting section on accepting evidence. And that was it.
I had one other point earlier on, and I can add that into later, is that we will, on the consent calendar items, that we will notify Denise of the new process for excusing absences.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right.
The only other staff comment that I have is to mention the document that we have posted, the Google Doc or Google Sheet for identifying your availability. So we still have 2 members, and then our newest member, I'll have him identify his availability once he starts, or I'll have him start doing that soon, but he wouldn't be part of the current, he wouldn't be a part of the current case. So Bernice and Angie, if you guys could identify your availability if you already haven't done that.
I think I need to do that too, Lori, because I didn't want to do it on my phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have you.
Yes, I will do that.
Okay. Okay. See, yeah, I copied and pasted the one up to March 30th. So after March 30th, you'll want to check, add in anything and then check to make sure what up till March 30th is, if that's accurate. Because your availability could have changed.
I don't think I got that one for the availability, Lori. The only time I'm not available is from March 23rd, 24th, and 25th. And then the Monday, the 28th, I'll be out of town.
March 28th?
Yeah, I'll be from the Wednesday, what is that? 23rd?
Yeah.
To Monday, the 28th.
This availability document goes all the way through June.
I don't see it. I don't know if I.
Okay, I will resend the link. I'll resend the link.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you'll want to try and do that on probably on a laptop.
I have it open right now, so I'm gonna use that. Because I only open it for us and that's it. Otherwise I don't touch it.
And that is any other staff comments?
Nope.
Right. So the meeting is adjourned at 8 p.m.
Yay, we did good.
Mm-hmm. Thank you guys.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.